I watch my budget extremely carefully, but even with the diligence that I have towards my finances, I still fall victim time and time again, year after year, to these tactics by providers. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to break down and be very specific with how much I was paying and how much I was able to save with various types of bills and providers that my family uses every month. So as we go through my monthly budget and how I was able to save thousands of dollars, I'm going to keep track of exactly how much we're saving with an indicator on the screen. So let's start off with the most common, which almost every household has, which is cable and TV. I've been with my provider right now for luckily 10 years without having to switch it. The first year that I was with them, I signed on to a deal for $100 a month. And it stayed like that, but eventually, about a year after I had them, all of a sudden I noticed my bill went up by $50. It ended up going to $150. I was very confused by this. I had no idea what happened. There was no indication of why that bill went up. So I called my provider and asked them, and they told me that my promotion expired that I signed on with to sign up with them, and that was going to be my bill. Well, I told them that was unacceptable, that I wanted to pay back what I was paying, and we talked it out, and eventually I was able to get on another promotion. So now I was able to reduce my bill back down to $100. But if I didn't catch that, I would have been paying $50 extra every month without me knowing it. But this simple 1 hour phone call was able to shave $50 off my monthly budget just by having this phone call. On that same call, another thing that I noticed was that I had a bunch of equipment rental charges. Now, some of those things people can't buy commercially, like your cable TV box. But there was one piece of equipment on there, your modem, which I didn't know very much about at the time, that you can actually buy yourself and you don't have to pay that rental charge. This rental charge was $15. And I kept that person on the phone when she told me that we could provide our own. I immediately went to Google or an Amazon and figured out exactly how much a relatively good modem that had good reviews that could provide the speeds that I was looking for with my current service. And that came out to about $60. So I immediately said, here, I'll send your modem back. I'm going to go buy this one, and we're going to get it set up. So this whole conversation lasted somewhere probably about an hour long. And at the end of it, I was paying $85 instead of the $150 that I would have been paying if I didn't catch it. So let's break all of these costs down and figure out how much I saved. So let's start with the modem. The modem cost me $60, but that modem lasted me for 5 years before I had to replace it. So if you think about how much of I saved, it's $15 times 12 months times 5 years. That comes out to be $900 even. So if you subtract the $60 that I originally invested into it, which gives us $840, you divide that by 5, that comes out to be $168 a year. Now, I also saved $50 a month off of the plan. You times that by 12, you get $600. For this 1 hour conversation, I saved $768 for that year, for just that year. Now, every year after this, my conversations only maybe last 30 minutes with them, and I'm able to save the same amount every year from here on out, okay? So when we're making these savings, you always have to keep in mind that everything is in multiples of 12. If you save $10, that's actually $120 over the year. If it's $20, it's $240, and you get the idea. When you look at these numbers and these big amounts, it ends up being a very real number. And like I said, that real number is somewhere in the thousands, $2,000 to $4,000 on average. Most people save by doing comparison shopping and trying to drive down their monthly provider bill. All right, let's move on to the thing that, again, I know everybody has, which is your cell phones. We started with 2 lines, and we were paying $140 for those 2 lines. This was an unlimited data plan, and very soon, within the next 6 months or so, I went back and actually looked at how much data we were using, and I found out that, oh wow, we're only using 8 gigs of data. We don't need an unlimited data plan because there's a 10 gig plan that exists that's actually $40 less. I called up my provider when I realized that we were overpaying for services that we didn't need, and they were agreed to change the contract to bring me down to this lower fee. So I was now going from $140 to $100. Well, very recently, I found that there was another savings to be had, is that I was, every couple of years, I do shopping in the area for different cell phone providers. Again, I only call maybe 2 or 3 companies. Calls are very short, maybe 20 or 30 minutes, and I try to get a quote for how much our needs cost for that provider. This last time, I just so happened I found that me and my wife were only using about 5 gigs, and a 5 gig plan at a new provider was only like, for 2 lines, was $65. As soon as I heard that, I immediately called my current one and asked them if they could match it. They couldn't. I dropped them and we switched to this new provider. So now, because I do this, 1 to 2 hours of work every year for this cell phone, I've been able to drop my bill from $140 all the way down to $65 for these 2 lines, and I have never regretted it once. So in total right now, I've been able to save $900 a year going from $140 to $65 on just our cell phone bill. Sorry, that's my cats. They're trying to murder each other right now, but we're going to keep focusing on the topic here. The other deal that I want you guys to pay attention to is actually where it comes to buying your cell phones for a monthly fee. A lot of providers will say, hey, there's this new phone that you're interested in. Instead of you paying the $900 that this phone is worth right now, we'll charge you that fee over the next 12 to 24 months. Sometimes you're lucky and they just charge you the MSRP for that phone. Sometimes they actually charge you more than that. I get it. It makes sense that you can buy a phone kind of like you would buy a car, where you can slowly pay it over a long period of time. But these are not deals. And in fact, you don't even need to get that type of phone. Often, and what me and my wife have done for the last 5 years or so, is when a new phone is released, we need to replace our phone, we actually look back 1 to 2 generations and buy those phones. Often when a new phone or a new model is released, that the previous models drop severely in price. And so a phone that maybe a year and a half ago cost $900 to buy, we can buy from Amazon and eBay brand new for $300, $200. We've done it every time and we've never regretted it. The only thing you have to make sure is that you are buying a phone that is factory unlocked. Again, I've never had a problem with this. And especially if you buy it from Amazon or eBay, they have great return policies. So if for some reason it doesn't match up with your service provider, you just send it back and then try again. This has been able to save us about $300 a year. We still need to replace our phone every 2 to 3 years because cell phones just aren't made to last that long. But now instead of paying $900 over 1 to 2 years, we're only paying $300 now over 1 to 2 years. And so again, that's about an average savings of $300 a year by buying your cell phone through a generation 1 or 2 old cell phone. Again, new, totally works the same, and you can pay $600 less. Probably the biggest saver out of all of the providers that I've talked about so far comes down to your homeowner's insurance. Just like all the other ones I've talked about, these providers offer you a great deal to start, but then jack up the prices, sometimes with accidents happening. I'll get into it in a little bit, what I'm talking about, but your prices change year after year, and for one reason or another, and then all of a sudden you're paying crazy premiums that you were paying when you first started or when you first joined with that provider. When we first moved into our house, we had 3 things that we needed to do. 3 different types of insurance we needed. We needed homeowners, we needed a car, we needed motorcycle. We have 2 cars, 2 motorcycles, and a house. We were able to get, again, I did my comparison shopping, and I found the company that gave me the best deal for a bundle with all of them. You're going to be bundling all of these insurances because that's the best way you can get a deal with any provider. If you split them up, you are not going to get the best deal, guaranteed. We were paying $1,250 for the house. We were paying $800 for both cars for a year, and we were paying $250 for the motorcycles. After the first year, I noticed that, I noticed they didn't alert me, and there was no indication that our bill was going to go up. I noticed that instead of paying $1,250, which is what I paid a year ago, now I'm paying $1,500 for our house. I couldn't tell from the bill why it was going up. So I called them, and after talking for a little bit, they told me the reason why my bill was going up is because the value of my home magically increased by 30%. This is not COVID time. This was back in 2018 where nothing was really happening. So while she was on the phone with me, I went to Zillow and I found out that my home had maybe increased by 5% during that time. I told her, I think that that's wrong. I'm not sure where you're getting that at. And could you please double check that? And they came back to me a little bit later. I was very persistent. I told them I was going to stay on the line. I wanted them to check it. And eventually they admitted that it was a clerical error on their part and then told me that they were very sorry. A couple months later, when we were paying for our 6-month interval for our car insurance, we noticed that it jumped up $150. We were paying $400 for every 6 months. Now we're paying $550. And I didn't understand what was happening there. And so I called them and I asked them, why did our car insurance jump up an extra $150 for this payment? And they told me that my wife's DriveSafe app wasn't updating to their server. And so they had no record of her driving for the last 2 or 3 months. I went to her phone, I looked at it, I took a screenshot of it, and I sent them that there was a log of all of her trips. What was happening is that for some reason it wasn't sending that information to the company, so they weren't seeing it. They didn't tell us that this wasn't happening. They know we were signed up for this and that it's been working properly. No indication until we got that bill. The thing that finally broke the camel's back that made me get off of this provider was when it came to our motorcycles. We were paying $250 to cover both motorcycles. My wife does not have a license. She does not drive them, and she rides on them very rarely with me from time to time. Our motorcycle insurance jumped up $150, and we pay for this once a year. And when that happened, I called them again and asked them, because again, it was not clear to me why it was going up. After looking through the paperwork and sitting there trying to figure out what happened, somehow my wife got switched to the primary driver, and I became the secondary driver. Somebody with no license, no experience, and that rarely rides on them got switched to the primary driver. I asked them, how did this happen? They couldn't explain it to me. They did switch me back down to the $250, but I had enough. After the mistake on the house insurance, after my wife's cell phone stopped communicating, and after she became the primary driver somehow on the motorcycle, I had enough. If I wouldn't have caught any of these, instead of paying $2,400 for all of these insurances bundled together, we were going to be paying almost $3,000 for everything combined. So at this time, I started doing my comparison shopping like I do with all my services, especially when I've had enough. And I was able to get our house down to $820. And so that's a huge jump. And you may be asking, wow, why is that so much? Looking into it, because I was confused as well, why someone would basically offer me 50%, 30% less than what I was paying. It's because my current provider was charging me dwelling coverage for a $550,000 house, which is almost 2 times more expensive than what our house is actually worth. Now I have the appropriate dwelling coverage, and so I am paying the $820. So again, this is where comparison shopping goes in. Just that one deal there, I was able to save $400 a year just by switching that insurance and catching that, again, mistake by the insurance company. We got our car to go down to $660, and we got the motorcycle insurance to go all the way down to $130. And then, again, this is a package price for both vehicles, both motorcycles, both cars. So we went from paying almost $3,000 if I wouldn't have caught these mistakes to paying about $1,350. So that's an overall savings of about $1,600 per year for just that insurance. Lastly, the thing you may want to check that you have control over is your streaming platforms. There's Netflix, Hulu, Disney Plus, and so on. And you should make sure that you're actually using these as much as you were when you first got them. Me and my wife recently looked at this, and we had all 3 of those. And what we found out is that we almost were putting no time in on Disney Plus or Hulu. And so we got rid of them. We got Disney Plus mainly because we love The Mandalorian. Who doesn't love The Mandalorian? It's an awesome series. But we kind of came to the conclusion that it's over with, and paying $100 for something we never touch was not worth it to us. And we also dropped Hulu, which was another $144. So far I've gone through basically all the major providers that my family has control of and how much we pay. Gas, water, and electric are a little bit more difficult. You can't really shop around for those very easily. Though that being said, electric probably in the next 5 to 6 years, everybody that's listening to this video now should probably look into solar panels, because I think that there's a good chance that that technology is going to get more efficient, and so efficient that you'll be able to easily make money instead of actually spending money on electricity. When I first started all of this comparison shopping back 10 years ago, when I started realizing this, I was probably spending somewhere around maybe 5 to 10 hours per year getting all these various deals sorted out and making sure that I was keeping all these hidden fees into check. Now, on average, I probably spend somewhere around 3 hours a year total doing this. In fact, this year, I don't know if I've spent any time. So we'll just call it that on average for the last 10 years, I've spent about 5 hours a year working on this. And now I am saving about $3,500 every year for 5 hours of work. So that comes out to be about $700 an hour for my labor. And if you're curious what that is per month, it's about $300 a month. Now, if you are living paycheck to paycheck, trying to pay down debt, or maybe build your wealth by doing investments and stuff, or planning for retirement, $300 a month can change your life. It can make you live happier, it can make you live more stress-free, and it can prevent arguments inside your family. I know that this seems very daunting and a lot of work, but I encourage everybody who's watching this video to try it out. Just do one bill. And if you save money, do a second bill and just keep doing it, because $300 a month changes lives. So before I get into the methods that you need to do in order to save you thousands of dollars each year on your providers, I would ask you, if you've liked the content and you find these videos helpful and you want other people to see them, please go down and hit the like button, and then also think about subscribing to the channel. This way, whenever I release new financial videos, you can be right there and you'll see them, and hopefully they can help you out. And if you really like this content and you find it very helpful, then please share it on your social media so we can get the word out to as many people as we possibly can.